Today we have a fun topic.
Where's Brady?
I don't like that word. I'm from Buffalo.
Where's our quarterback? Where's Brady?
Can we try something else? Oh,
Where's
man,
the
he's
guy?
the bald guy. Yeah, he's
Where's
out
the
on the
other bald
road.
guy?
Which bald guy? There's bald guys everywhere. Welcome back, guys, to the Entrepreneurial Family Man podcast. We're just four guys who are crazy about our wives, love our kids, and we want to kill it in business, too. Yeah, Nehemiah is out there on the road looking for some Wi-Fi. Pretty common situation for us here at EFM. But
he's actually with us, just doesn't have a good enough connection to throw the passes and to be our host today. So we pulled McGreevy in because it's perfect for him to host today's episode, because he is a man who is in the throes of the exact thing that we are talking about on today's show.
Yes, I am. And I happen to be very organized, very focused, and very methodical the way that I do things. Just kidding. No, why are you guys laughing? Anyway, today's topic, being a father of toddlers. Any of you guys that have toddlers right now, you know what I'm talking about. It can be awkward. It can be inconvenient. It can be, sometimes we'd rather just kind of walk away and hand these little babies to our wives because we don't know what to do. Thanks for putting me in this hot seat, guys, because I'm in the thick of it right now. I actually should be learning from you guys in this because your kids are grown up a little bit. So we're just here to open up this discussion about how can we do this well. I mean, we're going to be home a lot of the time, right? We have to spend time with these kids. We want to spend time with these kids. We want them to grow up to be successful adults, but it is just flat out hard sometimes. Jamie, you have 4 kids. You've gone through this toddler stage at least 4 times. What the heck do you do? What have you learned from going through that?
I'm learning that I slip into this victim mentality where I'm like, I didn't sign up for this. This is inconvenient. It's way less work to live in a condo with the HOA than to have a 300-acre farm. And as EFM guys, we've decided to not only work from home, you know, we have home office. A lot of us are we're all homeschooling on this screen right now. So we're biting off a lot of things to do. And let's not kid ourselves. This is the life that we signed up for. We chose this.
Jamie, you know, when I'm sometimes in the throes of it and I have kids screaming, I'm trying to change a diaper and the other one's kicking the dirty diaper, I'm kind of like, wait a minute, I chose this? Is this what I signed up for? It can't be it.
I want to be vulnerable with you guys. I feel like a victim a lot. Let's face it, it could be exhausting all the time, every day.
Well, Jamie, thanks for being real about that. I think we all feel like a victim sometimes with little kids like that. It just gets tough. And believe me, I've been there with the why me feeling when everything's hitting the fan and coming undone. I mean, sometimes I don't think we were built for that as men.
When kids are in diapers, there's a lot of stuff hitting the fan.
Exactly. What do you think, Chris? What are your thoughts on this?
I'm glad we're doing this topic, and I guess I want to clarify for our listeners' sake that the reason we specifically zeroed in on toddlers, we're talking like, you know, infants up to maybe preschool, you know, 4 or 5 years old, something in there, is because, I mean, kids are challenging all the time. And anytime, you know, when you sign up for parenting, it's a big challenge. And if you do big things like working from home or you know, homeschooling or all of the above and have a large family, it just gets more and more challenging. But we're addressing today some specific, unique challenges that come with the kids when they're in that age where pretty much if they're uncomfortable, they need a diaper change or they need food or it's bath time or they're not wanting to nap or they're colicky or sick or whatever else. Mostly they're looking for mom. And we guys are oftentimes all too happy to say, oh, yeah, I'll go get mommy for you. You know? And we're really kind of saying, sometimes we're abdicating the responsibilities that we have as dad because we're taking advantage of the fact that the kid only wants mom for comfort anyway, and that our wives are very nurturing. They'll jump right in and help out. Dads a lot of times figure, you know what, I love having kids. I'm very excited about this, but I'm going to wait on the sidelines until they're maybe, 6 years old, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh boy, then I could help coach their upward ball league or help them out with little league, and I could do other kinds of things. I'm not really sure what to do with them when they're this young. Frankly, they get on my nerves pretty quickly. I cannot handle screaming. So that's why we're addressing the challenges as dads, and specifically as entrepreneurial family men, working from home and helping out a lot with these younger years when it's really tough to know where our role is.
That's such a great point, Chris. As EFM guys, we can't just say, tag me in when they're older. I mean, they need us now, these little toddlers. And I think that's one of the points I want to bring up here. I want to take the pressure off for some of you guys with toddlers, because sometimes us guys, we want to do, right? We want to teach our kids a skill. We want to have some kind of deep conversation to impart some wisdom upon them to prepare them for adulthood or something. And there just aren't a whole lot of opportunities for that when they're little babies. What they do want from us is just to be with them, to be present with them. We don't necessarily have to be doing anything specific other than just being with them and spending time with them. And one of the things that that my son Gunnar and daughter Skylar like to do with me, we play together. And this is real complex. Hang with me here. They throw the balls down the stairs and I throw them up the stairs. That's the game. And they love it because I'm trying to get them all up the stairs and get all the balls to stay up there all at once. They're trying to throw them down at the same time, and it becomes this crazy match of who can throw faster. And they actually usually win because they have two of them and they just keep throwing them at my head. But not a complex game, not necessarily super fun for me for longer than 30 seconds. But I'm connecting with them and spending time with them, and we're having a blast together, and we're together. And we're just like getting to share these moments of excitement. And I mean, that could be it. Could you just play with them where they're at? Jamie, what examples do you have just from all these situations that you've been in with your young kids where maybe it wasn't this complex thing that you had to figure out? You just were with them.
Sometimes I go to the grocery store and I'll take one or two kids. What I like to do is just enjoy being with them. And so I give my kids options. Like, I'll let them take the cart, let them decide if they want to be inside it or push it or help me, and they'll be my assistant. And I've done this all the way when the kids are really young, and it continues to work when we're older. So if I'm going to Home Depot to buy charcoal for the big green egg, the kids love being in the cart and going and looking, jumping on the tractors over at Home Depot and just hanging out with Poppy. I know Poppy sounds funny, but they'll call me Big Poppy.
Poppy!
I love Poppy.
I think so often guys overthink it, right? You're doing things on an everyday basis. Bring your kids along. Give them a play-by-play description of what's happening. Ask them what kind of music they want to listen to in the car. Just go through these everyday activities and don't overthink it. Just do life and be with them. I want to take the pressure off. Yeah, you're not going to be as good of a nurturer as your wife is. She's born and bred for that sort of thing. But it doesn't mean you're off the hook. Engage and spend that time with them.
Very definitely. We're all coaches here on this podcast, and so we listen for questions a lot. And I think it's fascinating to listen to the questions that kids begin to ask just as soon as they can get past the very first little babbles and dad, mama, and poo-poo. That's kind of the first, that's their world during that early years. But once they start to put together little half sentences even, a lot of their interaction with us verbally is questions. And it's usually, what this? What that? Why this? Why not? They're just wanting to know about the world. And that continues all the way up in this preschool age that we're talking about, where they're actually letting us know, if we'll take the cues, look, I'm a sponge. I'll pretty much take anything you'll put into me. And you're right. We dads, I think we oftentimes overthink the thing. We're waiting to shape their character or teach them some big insight. And the main thing they're wanting to know is, first, do I matter? Am I valuable? Do you know I'm here? Does my world matter to you? Now that they're not thinking that, but our attention to them, our looking at them, our kneeling down to their level, our response to their sometimes ceaseless questions, our patience with them, our willingness to engage at the level that they really are is a teachable moment, because it's teaching them, yes, you're loved. Yes, you matter more than anything else, even with all the heavy things I've got going on in my mind right now. And yes, what matters to you is important to me. So we're pouring into this little receptive sponge. And so actually a lot of our verbal conversation can be, as annoying as it sounds at first, simply responding to those kinds of questions. You got to put yourself in dad mode first. Otherwise, we're still in adult mode. But if you can get into daddy mode and get down there at their level, it's actually kind of a kick to still get the groceries bought, or still, go to the Home Depot or make a run to the gas station or whatever it is. But to have a conversation that is purely about stuff that if any other guy was hearing you, unless they're a daddy, they think you'd lost your mind. Instead, you're in kid world. You're just meeting the kid where they are about stuff they're interested in.
Oh, Chris, I so appreciate that perspective, because I think right now, on average, I'm hearing the word why about 300 to 400 times per day.
Yeah.
After a while, I don't care how much grit that I have, it breaks me after a while. I just can't take it. I can't answer that question again for the 100th time.
So, Michael, do you tell Gunnar that's not a good? You should avoid using the word "why" in coaching. You tell him that, okay?
Right, not a good coaching question. Yeah. Now that really brings us to our second point, though, of it's a perspective shift. Sometimes I'll admit this myself. I mean, I think in order for me to impart some of this wisdom and to pour into them the way I want to, they need to be quiet first, and they need to start behaving, and then I can start teaching them what they need to know.
Are you listening to me? Are you listening to me?
Why?
Yeah. Why? Meanwhile, they're asking me already, and they're already willing to learn, and that's already happening. But I'm trying to put them in this place so they can listen in a way that they're not even going to listen in very well. So it's this perspective of, are you trying to get your kids to behave or be in line? Or are you trying to get your kids to feel loved, to feel like you are there, to know that you are for them? And that's a question that I want to put out there. What do your kids feel after spending time with you?
I'm remembering a story that I read years and years ago. It was a column in the newspaper. I think it's still run. It's called Dear Abby. I don't think the woman who originally wrote it is even alive anymore. I think her daughter's carrying on. But anyway, Dear Abby would be just like responses to listeners' questions. And they were about life issues, kind of a self-appointed expert. But somebody had written her a letter about the passing of their father, and Dear Abby began to reflect on the loss of her own father. And she wrote this beautiful, very poignant, pretty painful piece, actually, about the loss of her dad. And she started by telling, I won't relay this exactly, but she started by telling how she used to play with her Barbie dolls all the time, and she had one Ken doll. And she said, I never knew what to do with the Ken doll. So I would always hold him by the legs and have him say, bye-bye, everybody, I'm going to work. And then I would stick him under the bed, and that was it. I was done with the Ken doll, and I would play with Barbies until, we were done playing.
Whoa.
She said, the day that I got the news that my father had died, I went into my bedroom, fished under the bed, and pulled out the Ken doll. I never knew that losing him would hurt so much. That story has really stuck with me, because what was happening was she was rehearsing in her play, exactly what her world mirrored for her. I don't know how to interact with daddy. I see daddy in the morning right after he eats his oatmeal before he goes out the door and waves bye-bye. I know he loves me. I know he's like a provider protector, I guess, but he's not a part of my daily life. And suddenly, forever, he wasn't ever again part of my life. And the grieving of that vacuum, I think, was kind of something that for me as a dad really spoke to me, saying, well, thank goodness I'm not, stepping out of this life yet. But what am I pouring into my children in addition to provider protector? Yeah, we got to do that. And if it requires us waving bye-bye and heading off to the office, so be it. If it's something we can do as entrepreneurial family men, being at home with our family, so much the better. But we're still going to be in the office a lot. The question is, what are we doing to pour into them and to leave deep deposits in their being as our children in all those other times where we do interact with them? What does the Ken doll do when the child is playing with it away from us?
McCluskey, that is such a great story. I love that. And man, as EFM guys, we do not want to be that guy that gets put under the bed during the day while our kids are living life separate from us. We want to be engaged with them. We want to interact with them even at a young age, and that can be tricky. So guys, what are some things that we can do as dads just to engage with our toddlers? If for those guys that have young babies out there, how can we help them out? How can they engage with their kids and connect with them on a deep level?
If you're struggling with that victim mindset, I think it would be to become highly aware when you go into that, and then just make a decision. Go in there and be a dad. Play the game with your kids up the stairs. Like, McGreevy, do you have a name for that game? Can we give that, call it the McGreevy game, and have these guys go take the little balls and play with their 3 and 4-year-old? Just
it probably has a caveman name, something like throw the ball down and throw the ball up.
Rituals was a huge thing for me growing up. My own father was a great dad, and he had certain rituals. He worked the traditional, 9 to 5 job Monday through Friday. He was pretty much always home by dinner time by 6 o'clock or so. And he worked occasionally, the half day on Saturday or something, but he was there with us. He did, when we got older, coach the ball teams and was very active in the Cub Scouts and the Boy Scouts, all that kind of stuff. But he also just had regular little rituals that he did. And they were short, they were brief, but myself and my 2 siblings, we could easily go back and immediately call up a whole bunch of them. In the morning time when we'd be finishing up breakfast, getting ready for school, and he was heading off to work, he would finish up and he would push back to the table and say, well, I'm off to see the wizard. And that was always what he said. We didn't know what Dad did at his job, but whatever it was epitomized by him going off to see the wizard. And so he would say, Gene, give me the chewing gum. And Dad used to be a smoker of a pipe. And so he had broken his pipe, habit, and he would get a stick of gum. He'd put it in his mouth, and we'd say, chewing gum dance, Daddy. And he would do the chewing gum dance, and he would dance himself out the front door. When I saw just this week on our EFM Facebook group, Chris Niemeyer doing his little daddy dance, right, with his kids, I was like, yeah, that's it exactly. I mean, what a goof. But that's exactly what you want. The kids are laughing. The kids are experimenting with dancing. Then they start to think they're actually cool and all, because they're taking cues from Daddy. If Daddy can do it, maybe it is cool. Maybe I could be cool. It's a moment. It's a ritual. It's an engaged kind of a thing. When I was working 3 jobs. I had a ritual of coming home at night. It was oftentimes really late. Rachel would try to keep Alyssa up to be able to see me. I always wore dress shirt and tie, so I had a pocket in my shirt. And I began putting a little surprise in my shirt pocket every single day. As I would come home, that was a ritual. It's only a touch point. That's about all I'm going to get. But Alyssa would come running up to me in her little PJs, and jump up into my arms and give me a hug. And she would put her hand immediately down into my shirt pocket to see what was in there. And usually it was just a shock tart, like a little sweet tart kind of a thing. I remember her lisp. She would say, it's a shock tart. She had a particular way of saying shock tarts. But she would grab it, and that was exciting. Once in a while, I'd put a little teeny weeny toy in there, something that would go in a little window box kind of a thing in her room, a little bitty teddy bear or a little, dolly thing, a teapot or something. So there'd be surprises, but it didn't matter what it was. It was that Daddy was thinking about me. I'm excited to see Daddy. Daddy does special things for me. I get a big hug. She would sleep with my robe that had my cologne on it. That was a comfort for her. Dads, I mean, all of you that are listening are dads. Think of the things that can be touch points with your kids. Kids get reinforced by rituals really fast, and they're very, very powerful.
It's ever evolving with these little ones and rituals, but it is an interesting time for sure. I'll tell you where we are right now. Skylar, our 2-year-old, goes to bed virtually the same time as Gunnar, just a little bit before. But when we put her down in her crib, I always prayed for her. And then Gunnar started to come in, and he would want to pray with her too. And now, if for some reason I forget, Gunnar comes running in. He's like, we got to pray for Sky. We got to pray for Sky. So that's become a new ritual. Skylar goes down. The sound machine goes on. Gunnar puts his hand on Skylar, and we both pray for her before she falls asleep.
Wow.
That's awesome.
It's really cool because sometimes when I'm not in the frame of mind, he is, and he's 3 years old. And that then carries over to our time when I go into Gunnar's room and put him down. And yeah, he wants to be prayed for as well. And so that's our ritual.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Jamers. How about you, buddy?
My Cecilia, I got one girl, and she's a special one. So we have a thing that me and Ruthie both do this, but we give Cecilia a hug that is probably about 15 to 20 seconds long. She takes like these cleansing breaths as we hug each other, and you can just hear her kind of wind go, and it's just a nice way of connecting. And then with Giovanni and Amelia, we still pray a lot. And I know one thing that is part of my ritual is Ruthie always encourages me to be goofy because I'm like the 7 on the Enneagram, so like joke around. I'll just give an example. Like I try to do some unpredictable, goofy stuff as our kids are just settling down in bed. Diego, a couple days ago, I had this book that was about trucks, and it's for like a 2-year-old, and Diego is 13 now. So I went in there and snuggled up with him in bed, and it took about 3 to 4 minutes to read this book from cover to cover. I had read it to all the kids before. I was going to skip it for him, and I was like, no, like he knows what it's like to be. He remembers being a kid and having me come and snuggle up with him. So I lay down in bed with him and put my arm around him, and I read him that book. And it was fun. It was just fun to connect with him. And I was being goofy. He's a pretty funny kid himself. And so, I don't know, just trying to be myself with him right before we went to bed. So I read him that little book.
That's awesome. I love it.
What he loved was that you were with him. That there's that touch of familiarity. You're leaning against him, or you got your arm around him, or any time with our kids that we can combine the healthy kind of touch that's just cuddling, daddy's wrestling on the floor, hair tousled, back scratched, hands held, helping out with bath time. With the girls, I always used to brush out their hair and put it back into ponytails. What did I know about doing a girl's hair? Well, I knew enough to get it into a ponytail, and I'd tell them how pretty they were as I was combing back their hair and how nice it was to feel their beautiful hair. And then look at them in the mirror. And we had, we had so many bath time rituals up on in the bathtub. If you looked straight up at the ceiling, we stuck a picture of Mickey Mouse up there. And that was because, of course, once you've shampooed their hair, you want to tip their head back so that you can rinse it off. And it was always the case that they would tip their head forward then too much and get, the soap down in their eyes. Well, ritual was, look up at Mickey, keep looking at Mickey, keep looking at Mickey. And then get all the stuff. Just fun things for all the stuff that still has to get done anyway. If you can ritualize it, kids just thrive on rituals. Mike, I love that you said that, your kids will actually remind you when you've missed the ritual. They help us stay in integrity with what we really want to be pouring into the kids. But man, those bedtime stories, that's huge. I could well remember having splitting headaches because working as I was at the time, it wasn't uncommon for me to have a headache. I'd be laying down in bed with something propped underneath my neck. I might even have an ice pack around my head. But by golly, I could read a story. And I tended to read stories that didn't have pictures in them. I didn't want the kids looking at the pictures. I wanted them listening to my voice and using their imaginations and painting the pictures of the people in the stories, like the Boxcar Children or the Bobbsey Twins or the Little House on the Prairie series or the Winnie the Pooh stories. I wanted them picturing the characters as they drift from fully awake into that wonderful dream state to Daddy's voice, reading a story, making up little voices for the characters and all. Dads, we can do these kinds of things. They all have to be done anyway in some form or fashion, and you can make them fun and like you say, Jamie, goofy. And boy, did they make deposits in the kids.
Yeah, that's such a great example. That time before bed when they're starting to wind down and their minds are just kind of soaking everything up that you're saying. It's such a sweet moment for us dads, and we'll miss it, right? If we don't fully engage there and show up and be there, we're missing out on so much. Well, guys, we're going to wrap this thing up for today, but just as a recap, take the pressure off. You don't have to impart some kind of eternal wisdom onto these little babies. Often it's just being with them, just being present. Maybe it's sitting down on the floor and playing with a toy that they're playing with. That's a shift in perspective too, right? It's not to try to get them to behave so they'll listen to you. It's not about them listening and being quiet. They're babies. They're going to be loud. They're going to be all over the place. In fact, my son is knocking on the door right now behind me because he just got up from his nap. What do you want your babies to feel after spending time with you? I got to go get this, and maybe Gunnar will have the last word.
Jamie, you know something, while he's going and getting the door, there's something I was thinking too, is this deposits heavily into our kids. It also deposits heavily into our wives, doesn't it?
Bubba, can you close us up today?
My big shark is my bed on the side, on that side.
And what's your shark's name?
Scar. My dinosaur's name is Stewie.
Stewie?
Yeah.
And what's your bear's name?
Stu-Magoo. Wait, Stu-Magoo is my dog.
And what's your bear's name?
Stu-Macaco.
There you have it, guys. From the lips of babes flies some of the deepest truth. Go be with your babies. Don't miss an opportunity.
Thank you for listening to the Entrepreneurial Family Man Podcast. Visit efmlife.com to connect with us and others like you who are pursuing success in enterprise, family, and marriage.